Welcome back to the Hood News Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 109. This is a very special episode. It is our first episode where I'm actually rolling it out solo. So the other guys couldn't make it. MFB, BBTB, they'll be with me on the next episode, hopefully. But this is week 14 waivers. These are where waivers get really important in the season because some of these guys break out late and end up being league winners. We've seen it before many years. CeeDee Lamb, when he was a rookie, he was kind of a league winner his last few weeks in the season. He really stepped it up. Last year we saw, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's players that break out late in the year. And so these waivers get really important as we head towards the fantasy playoffs. Let's go ahead and jump into quarterback position at the very top. Tyrod Taylor, who's only rostered in 4% of leagues. Not the most attractive pick. They do get Miami, who have been pretty good for quarterbacks. He was able to connect this week very well with Adonai Mitchell. So hopefully he can keep that momentum going into the next game, divisional matchup against Miami, where both teams are not really playing for a playoff spot or anything, but I actually don't know how Miami's doing overall. Last I remember, they were not doing too hot. So, Tyrod Taylor, only 4% rostered, did his thing against Atlanta. This is like a very kind of desperation pickup. Not really necessarily a player that you would want to keep, maybe a spot start if you have a player on bye this week. Next, we got Tyler Shuck. Also very big desperation play. You're not excited to start him. He did his thing, though, against Miami, we just talked about, and they get Tampa this week. So divisional matchup. Divisional matchups are always crazy. So we shall see. Only 7% rostered, so pretty available. And he could be, could get you the points that you need to get you a win this week. So those are the only two that are really worth picking up and starting that are not already pretty heavily rostered. I would shout out Marcus Mariota, but I believe Jaden Daniels is coming back. You can pick up Marcus Mariota. He's only 10% rostered. If if you think that what's his name won't start, Jaden Daniels. But I'm pretty sure Jaden Daniels starts week 14, so you can probably skip Mariota. That'll do it for quarterbacks. Let's move into wide receivers at the very top. Adonai Mitchell, who I just talked about, only 3% rostered, who went out there and did his thing, had finally had his breakout game. He had 102 yards, caught 8 passes of 12 targets, and a touchdown. And so he was really excited. I saw kind of some clips from the post-game interview. He was really happy. I think it's nice to see a player with talent actually get the chance. I know that he did have that costly mistake on the Colts where he dropped the ball before he got into the end zone. And people will try to bring that up for him, but honestly, he went out there and did his thing. Took him a couple weeks. He got traded, at the end of the deadline, played the last 2 weeks, didn't really do much, got targeted a lot, but this week really broke out. And so his connection with Tyrod Taylor seems to be, clicking. He still gets one more game before Garrett Wilson is supposed to come back off IR. So for this next game or so, it'll be interesting to see how he can perform. But he may be a league winner potentially, just because if Garrett Wilson comes back, that actually takes pressure or coverage away from him. And so then that could actually give him more production. So we'll have to wait and see, but you definitely want to pick up Adonai Mitchell. That kind of skill that he showed this last week is something that you want on your team. And it could just be one of those players. Even if you don't end up using him, you don't need him. It could be you stop an opponent from having him and playing him against you. So worth an ad. Next on the list, Devon Vele, wide receiver number 2 for the Saints ever since Rashid Shaheed got traded away, who caught 8 catches on 8 targets for 93 yards and a touchdown, was the highest producing receiver on the team. He actually had more. He actually finished second in targets on the team behind Juwan Johnson, who had 9, but he was more productive with his targets. He only 1% rostered, and he could be that new kind of number 2 on the team. So right behind Olave. So a situation where there is a number 1 that's taking more of the coverage, and so another player can go out there and produce. So very under rostered, so pretty widely available. Next, we have Isaac Tesla, who is on this list not because he did anything last week, but more so because we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get injured on that Thursday night game. So that was against Green Bay. I think it's an ankle injury. I'm not sure how long he'll be out for. Keep up with the reports. Isaac Tesla did end up with a touchdown in that game, 35 yards on 2 targets, 2 catches. They don't have their tight end. I think Brock Wright also was out this week. And now no Amon-Ra. So the number 1 is Jameson Williams, and there's no one else. So Isaac Tesla can also be a really good ad. They're playing Dallas this week, Thursday Night Football. If Amon-Ra misses any time, especially if he misses this week, Tesla should see some good production in that game. So definitely worth an ad. Only 1% rostered, so very widely available. A couple more names here. Jaden Higgins, who is a rookie playing. Now CJ Stroud is back. Not very excited about this pickup. He's 35% rostered, so not really necessarily very available. They do get Kansas City, which is a tough matchup, and they play Sunday night against the Chiefs. But he had 65 yards on 5 receptions, 5 targets against the Colts in a divisional matchup, which was a game they ended up winning. But he could end up producing more so down the stretch. He had a touchdown in Week 12 against Buffalo. And if he follows the trend, he has a touchdown every other game. So he had a touchdown in Week 8, didn't have one Week 9, had a touchdown Week 10, didn't have one Week 11. You get the picture, so on and so forth. So Week 14, he could have a touchdown. So always worth an ad for rookies just to see how they end up doing in the years as they go, or in the games as they go. I believe I'm not mistaken, he is a rookie, Higgins. Yeah, he is a rookie. Okay, cool. I don't know why I got sidetracked there, or I kind of got distracted, or I forgot. But yeah, so he could be potentially someone that you add down the stretch that ends up helping your team out in the last few weeks. Last but not least, Jalen Coker, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, who stepped up and ended up helping them win that game against the Rams, big upset win. He had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. They go into the bye week, so you won't get him next week, but showed that he has some connection with Bryce Young. So maybe worth an ad, 4% rostered. I wouldn't be excited about adding any receivers from the Panthers in general. So I think I rank these guys kind of in the order that I brought them up. Adonai Mitchell, Devon Vele, Isaac Tesla. Devon Vele and Tesla can be interchanged depending on your needs. But yeah, the other 2 guys, Jaden Higgins, already pretty heavily rostered, 35%. And then Jalen Coker is kind of like, if you can get him, why not? Just pick him up. Probably wait for him to be a free agent instead of using a waiver claim on him, especially since he's going into the bye. That's it for wide receivers. Let's go ahead and jump into running backs. At the very top for running backs, Devin Singletary, who, by the way, they are also going into the bye week here. So just to note, Tyrone Tracy did end up with some sort of a concussion, so I don't think he'll miss week 15, but we'll see. Singletary's still worth an ad, only 22% rostered, and he's getting a lot of carries even with Tyrone Tracy there. So he's getting the work. Definitely worth an ad. Maybe less of a priority because he doesn't play next week, but still worth keeping on your radar. Next on the list, Blake Corum, 16% rostered, who got a good amount of work against the Panthers, ended up getting in the end zone, 7 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown, who has been semi-splitting work with Kyron Williams, not necessarily 50-50, but the way he played may give the Rams a reason to put him in more often just because of how he did against the Panthers. So someone to add for sure. At the very least, if you're a Kyron Williams owner, you should have Blake Corum, your handcuff, especially because of the production he has, even now before anything happens to Kyron Williams, which, if I'm not mistaken, Kyron did leave that game due to some ankle issue or something. So Blake Corum's definitely a major ad. Definitely should be rostered. Next on the list, Chris Rodriguez, who continues to be the starting backfield for the Washington Commanders. And any starting running back on any NFL team is worth an ad. He had 11 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown against Denver. They get Minnesota, and then the Giants, then Philly, and then Dallas. All pretty good matchups for running backs. So only 24% rostered. This is another one of those players that could be a league winner if he goes out there and just breaks loose for a big chunk play and then gets into the end zone. You're looking at 15 points a week easily. So definitely worth an ad, especially if Jaden Daniels comes back. It'll actually boost his value. So look into him. One more name. This is a very big dart throw. These other guys are probably already rostered if you're in a competitive league, to be honest. Singletary's probably already rostered, Blake Corum, Chris Rodriguez. Unless you're in a 10-man. In a 12-man, maybe some of these guys, but in a 14-man, they're for sure rostered. If you're in a 16-man, they're for sure rostered. This last name is kind of like a dart throw. Samaje Perine, only 3% rostered, who did fumble this week, which really, probably overshadows his value. But he had 14 carries and 2 targets, 2 receptions. So he had a lot of work in that game against Baltimore. And their schedule upcoming for running backs is really nice. They get Buffalo next week. And the Bengals are in a must-win situation for these next couple of games, especially because they beat Baltimore, so they're only 2 games behind. They play Buffalo and they play Baltimore again, which means they can catch up another game if they beat them again. And the Steelers aren't looking so hot as it is. So that division is still winnable for the Bengals. So then they get Miami and then Arizona. And of course, you can do anything you want against Arizona. But Samaje Perine got 16 touches in week 13. So he's a sneaky ad. I would really consider adding Samaje Perine. If you don't want to use a waiver claim, if you have a very low waiver claim priority, like 12 or something, throw a claim in for Samaje Perine. Like, why not? You probably will get him. If you have like a number 1, number 2 claim, probably look for these other guys or one of these other wide receivers instead. But I would add Samaje Perine. I would have him on my roster for sure. As a dart throw. I'm not going to say like, oh, he's going to win you your league or anything, but you can't ignore the touches, that many touches for a player. That's it for running backs. Moving on to tight ends. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing me talk. At the top, Isaiah Likely, 5% rostered. He's mostly at the top because of his low roster percentage. These other guys are pretty heavily rostered that we're going to call out here. But Isaiah Likely, who did fumble into the end zone, and so it was a touchback, and he didn't get the touchdown. Had he gotten that touchdown, it would have been his score would have looked a lot better, and they probably would have had a much closer game. He would have had at least 16 fantasy points instead of just 10. But he had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 95 yards. If you pick up Isaiah Likely, I would wait until week 15 when they play Cincinnati again to play him again. You could dart or dice roll him against Pittsburgh next week. But fumbling into the end zone seems to be a recurring theme this year. And so, I don't know. They probably trust Mark Andrews more, but he moves like a wide receiver out there, and Cincinnati gives up the most points to tight ends. So if you're going to roll Isaiah Likely out there confidently, I'd wait till week 15 when they play Cincinnati again. That's probably your best bet with him. Next couple names here. Brenton Strange, who we called out last week in week 13 waivers. We brought him up in the week 12, I think, midweek report, and we brought him up in the week 12 waivers. So we brought him up for the last 3 weeks. If you don't have him at this point, you missed out. 32% rostered at this point. Scored a touchdown last week against Tennessee. He gets the Colts in a divisional matchup this week. And Trevor Lawrence trusts him, and he likes to use him as a target. He had, 93 yards against Arizona. He had only 4 targets, 3 receptions, but 45 yards and a touchdown last week against Tennessee. So definitely worth an add. Seems to be one of the more stable tight end options, especially for a team that's looking to make a big push for playoffs. And they're Liam Cohen's making that team operate pretty well. So that they're kind of firing on all cylinders. So you want pieces of that offense. Next on the list, we have Darren Waller, who came back from injury this last week. He only had 3 targets, 2 receptions, 47 yards, but he was doing some good things for that team, scoring touchdowns left and right. Scoring touchdowns left and right when he was playing before he got injured. So he's got some pretty good tight end matchups. They do play Cincinnati week 16, so you definitely want him on your team for that matchup. Next on the list, Harold Fannin, who's 33% rostered. Seems to be one of the more targeted players on that Cleveland Browns offense. Shador found him in the end zone, got a touchdown. So 3 catches on 5 targets, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Definitely worth an add. He also has some pretty good matchups. He has some tough matchups as well for tight ends, but probably one of the more consistent options, one of the safer floors, kinda. I'm not excited to add him, but he's a rookie and he kind of gets out there and does his thing, so maybe worth an add. Last but not least, very big dice roll, Mason Taylor on an offense that, is starting to move a bit with Tyrod Taylor, better than with Justin Fields for sure. I put him in here because they get Miami and then Jacksonville, who are both really good matchups for tight ends the next 2 weeks. And I don't know, he's a rookie. He could just turn up last few weeks. I wouldn't be excited about picking him up. He's kind of like a dart throw, dice roll. You don't have any other option. Your tight end's on bye, so you pick him up. But yeah, just decided to throw his name in there. So you don't have to think about who should I pick up. That's it for tight ends. Let's go ahead and move into some kicker options and then a couple defenses, and that'll wrap it up. So first option for kicker is Riley Patterson, the Miami Dolphins kicker, who has the Jets next week, which is the number 1 matchup for kickers, who has been pretty solid. And the schedule for him is pretty good. I think he's filling in for Jason Sanders, who I believe is injured. So if Jason Sanders is back, obviously you want to play him and pick him up. Basically, whoever's the kicker for the Miami Dolphins. But Jason Sanders is, I guess, designated to return from IR. So he may be coming back this week. Just make sure you're aware of that before Sunday comes along and you're like, oh, what? I started the wrong kicker. I picked up the wrong kicker or whatever. Just pay attention. whoever the kicker is for the Miami Dolphins, pick him up and roll him out. Only 2% rostered for Riley Patterson, 6% rostered for Jason Sanders. Next on the list is Jake Moody, who did his thing over in Washington. He's, I believe, 0% rostered, which means he's available everywhere. Played well. They get Minnesota next week, which if JJ McCarthy's playing or anyone's playing on that team, that they definitely won't be scoring a lot. So the Washington Commanders are going to run all over them and just dominate, in which case they'll have a lot of opportunity to kick the ball. So Jake Moody, worth an ad, worth a start, and obviously available everywhere. So a couple of defenses. Tampa Bay playing against the Saints in a divisional matchup. I could see them shutting out the Saints. Tyler Shuck has been trying to do his thing, go out there and just sling it. And he hasn't looked too bad, but it's definitely a good matchup for the Bucs defense. So that's, and 29% roster, so pretty available. And then the Washington Commanders defense are playing against the Minnesota Vikings. And if it's JJ McCarthy, if it's Max Brosmer, whoever it is, you get ready for a lot of points. Seattle shut down Minnesota this week. 0 points for Minnesota. Crazy game. So definitely pick up the Washington Commanders defense. They should get a ton of points this week. Should. Who knows? JJ McCarthy might come back and just ball just because he picked up the Commanders defense, but it's definitely probably not going to happen. But that's it for this episode. Hopefully some of these guys end up helping you this week, or you stash them and keep them on your bench and use them a different week. But yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.